Burlesque Stripped Down, episode number 10. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, this is Velvet Eau Claire, your guide through all of the saucy, sexy secrets and journeys of the ladies and gents behind the tassels. Thank you again, as always, for pressing play today. I really appreciate you being here with me, particularly this month. As you may know, if you're not a first-time listener, this December 2015, I have deemed Authenticity Month. So all month long, we're talking about various ways to keep authentic, keep true to yourself, and to really let that shine through in your life, in your performances, and in your interactions with other people as well. So last week we had a big topic that was, a little difficult for me to talk about because it does really hit close to home, and that was the imposter syndrome, that feeling of not being good enough, that feeling of maybe being a fraud. People are about to find out that you're just kind of faking it all along. But we talked about how the reality is that we're all doing that, right? And so we got kind of deep into that. So if you haven't listened to that yet, I highly recommend that you head back just 1 week back to get that. You can find that at burlesquestrippeddown.com/imposter. And you can see all that there. And I'd really love to hear what you thought of that episode and all of these episodes, especially this month. As far as the interviews went on our Mondays, last week we had Adele Wolf on, who's fabulous. And then this past Monday, I was chatting with Miss Violent May, who is one of the first kind of Burlesque performers that I've had so far on the show. So that was really exciting as well. Now today I want to continue on talking about authenticity and about being true to yourself with these hot tips. And today I want to talk specifically about defining success. What a big word, a loaded word, success. What does that even mean? I want to be successful in my life. It's so easy to say something like that, but we really have to kind of delve deeper if we want to be able to figure out exactly what that means. So today I've got, kind of want to introduce the idea a little bit. Then I've got 3 specific reasons why it's really important to define your own definition, to make your own definition of success. And then I want to go into 4 specific ways or 4 specific steps on how to do that. Because it's all well and good to be like, yes, you need to have your own definition. But that doesn't really help me to figure out how to go about that. So as we all know, I think it's become kind of standard in a lot of different artistic communities that the traditional definition of success is not quite for us, right? We're not expecting to all, first we go and get for those of us in the US, we get our bachelor's degree, then we get our master's degree, and then maybe we get a doctorate, or we find a good high-paying job and work our way up the corporate ladder until we can afford to retire and be happy and live happily ever after, and that's good, right? Not to say anything about our personal lives, but at least for a career path, that's kind of the traditional, at least corporate path that we can take. And I think it's pretty well known in artistic circles that that's probably not going to work for us, for those of us who are pursuing careers as artists or who are artists in general. So we know that. That's possibly not the only definition of success, right? Having a pension fund and retiring at the age of 63 or whatever it is. But I think even within them, the artistic communities, there have become new standards that have come into place in a variety of different ways, depending on your exact community. For example, if we take the burlesque community specifically, it seems that a lot of people have taken to believe that in order to be a successful burlesque artist, you need to be touring internationally, you need to be playing at all the burlesque festivals, maybe going to BurlyCon, doing some stuff there, maybe going to the Hall of Fame, doing some things there, maybe the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, if you can get a show going on there, that's real success. So there's all of these new things that are then coming up with our kind of growing and evolving community. But what I want to impart on you today, and what I really want to emphasize, is that none of those are necessarily true. None of those need to be your definition of success. Okay? We need to come up with it for our own. And if some of those things are included for you, that's great. But they don't need to be. It is not absolutely necessary. Okay, so let's jump right into why it is necessary to define your own version. As I said, I have 3 main reasons here. The first one is for clarity's sake. The clearer you are on your own definition of success, the more success you're almost guaranteed to have. Whether you believe in kind of visualization techniques, whether you believe in all of that or not, you may or may not be a follower of, The Secret or the power of positive thinking. whether or not you buy into that stuff, it is clear, scientifically, it's been proven that more clarity results in, okay, I don't have an exact scientific study to back me up on that, but I imagine it's been proven, right? There has to be some study out there. But I know, it's common knowledge that the more clear you are in your success doesn't guarantee your success, but it definitely impacts it and definitely gives you a higher chance of achieving that level of success. And that deals directly with number 2. So number 1 being clarity for yourself and for your future. Number 2 is direction. And so it kind of ties right along with that. The more clear you are, just for the sake of your own mind, the more direction you have. And that makes making decisions so much easier, right? If you know what your end game is or what your version of success would be a year from now, 10 years from now, at the end of your life, it's going to make these small decisions, these small everyday decisions, what to do with yourself today, what to do with yourself this week, so much easier. When you have that direction, something that is actually framing you and pushing you forward, you can always kind of go back to reference it. It also makes saying no quite a bit easier. It's always hard. This is a whole nother topic of conversation, but it's always hard in anything to say no to what would be a good opportunity. And objectively, it's a good opportunity. That would be great. Even playing for exposure, things like that, which of course we all hate, right? But even those kind of things, sometimes it's hard to say no because that it would be a good experience and it would be some exposure. But once you have a very clear definition of your success and where that you want that to be, it's going to make saying no to things so much easier. Now, many of us spend a lot of time defining what our goals are in our lives or in our performance careers. I would like to do this by this date. But we don't always take the time to really define what success would look like. And I know that seems like a very small difference, and it can be in some ways, right? Success in the podcast maybe is about numbers and maybe it's about the goals. But on the big scale or on the small scale, defining about what success would be, not just hitting those goals and those numbers, but a successful version of that. Right? So maybe you could hit a goal of becoming the most famous burlesque performer in all of the UK or in all of France or in all of the US. And you could go about that by killing all of the other burlesque performers. Okay, yeah, you could do that. You could go about that by stabbing everybody else in the back, either literally or figuratively. You could go about that by being a really bad person. So that would hit your goal, but would it really give you that successful feeling in your life? Hopefully not. Hopefully not. So that's why it's important to, again, these can be things that you kind of put in together, but they are two different things. Your goals and your successes. They can impact each other, but it's important to think about them a little bit differently. So clarity, which then helps along with your direction. And number 3, the third reason why it's so important to define your own success is to be kind. And I know I sound so foo-foo, right? But kindness to yourself, because as we've talked about before and we'll talk about again, we're not all on the same level. I mentioned last week, you can't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. Right? Or an end or whatever. And by the same token, even if you're both in the middle, for example, if you have different versions, different definitions of success, you can't compare yourselves. You can't compare yourself to them or to anyone else. So having your definition of success and really knowing it and being clear about it is going to help you be kinder to yourself when you are not doing the same things or having the same recognition as someone who's been performing just as long as you, for example. So it helps you be kinder to yourself, and it also helps you be kinder to others. We always want to be kind to everyone around, right? And so when we know our own version of success, when we have that clearly defined and we know that it's our version, not the version, it helps us to be kinder to those who may be on a different path than us. Right? It's so easy to be like, well, why is he or she doing that? That's not what they need to be doing right now. But stay in your own business. Don't worry about their business and just be kind to everyone. Everyone you meet, they say everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. And while we're not specifically talking about stresses and struggles right now, all of the little stresses and struggles, all the little battles that we're all fighting, right? We want to be kind to others and to ourselves, who are all following different paths and may have a completely different vision of what a successful future would be. Okay, so those are 3 kind of general reasons just to remember as to why you're doing this, why it's important to take a day or 2 days to really define your version of success, to kind of to work through this on your own. Those are 3 super important reasons why this can't wait any longer. So, okay, so that's why. Great, fabulous. What about how? We need to have specific ways to go about this, because it's all well and good to be like, well, yeah, I don't really want to have, I don't need the solid paycheck. That's not important. I just want to be successful. No. That's not what we're talking about here. We want to get really detailed and really specific. So the first thing I advise you to do is to challenge your assumptions. Okay, to really open your mind. We've already, as I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, we've already gone past the idea of, college, entry-level job, work your way up, retire with a good income, all of that. At least as far as, and again, this is all talking specifically about our burlesque career. That may still be your definition of success for your, quote, I don't want to say real job, but for your primary occupation if burlesque is not yours, and that's great. But it may not be your way for your primary occupation or for your burlesque career. So challenge those assumptions. Challenge the general society-held assumptions, and also challenge those assumptions that you may see coming up within burlesque circles, even within your close friends, even from yourself. When you notice those things coming up, be like, oh man, maybe that's not a given, right? Somebody says to you, oh man, but you should really be trying to go to this festival this year. It's going to really put your name out there and get you in front of more people. Perhaps that's true, but I want that just to be a red flag to you where you say, wait a minute, does that fall in line? Is that something that I want for my version of success? There's a woman who I actually mentioned in my introduction to Authenticity Month a week or so ago, named Marie Forleo. And if you don't watch her videos, she is fantastic. She's very much kind of a creative entrepreneur, but she just has a wonderful online presence with lots of great tips as far as living your best life, living to be your best self. And she recently did a video talking about a similar topic about defining success. She had some different thoughts than I do, but one of my favorite things that she says is that she kind of almost reprimands the girl who wrote in, not really, but she says there's no such thing as only. The girl who wrote in said, I'm only so-and-so, I forget what her job was. I'm only doing such and such a thing right now. I don't own my own business. I'm only this. Okay. And Marie said very clearly, and I loved it, she said, there is no such thing as only. Your work does not equal your worth. And I think that's super important for us to remember as burlesque performers. So many people, even people I've interviewed on this podcast, have said to me before we started, oh, I've only been performing for about a year. I've only been in 4 shows. I'm sure I've even said it. Maybe even on the podcast. I don't know. Somebody call me out on it, right? It doesn't matter. As I've also said several times here on the podcast, you have something intrinsically valuable to offer. And your work does not equal your worth. Does not matter how much time you have. Doesn't matter if you are just only, we can't say those words. Does not matter if you are an amateur performer. That does not make you less worthy than a, quote, professional who does this full time. If you are defining your own version of success, that is what you need to measure your worth by, not by how much you're working. So, as I said, so that's one assumption we want to challenge. For example, there's no such thing as only. Some of these other assumptions, right? I've heard a lot of different definitions of success in doing my research and in talking with a lot of different people. For some people, it is financial, and that's okay. For some people, it would be to be able to make a career performing burlesque. A financially viable career and support themselves by performing. Okay, maybe that's it. For some people, this was another type of artist, but I thought this was an interesting one. She said that she felt that an artist was successful when you heard their name and you could immediately identify or think of some of their art without seeing the art first. So you could instantly recognize. So if I say Beyonce, you immediately start singing her song in your head. And that's how you know that you have some sort of artistic success. So maybe that's something that you resonate with, right? Maybe, again, it's just supporting yourself, being able to quit your day job, and being able to only work 3 hours per week on your day job or 10 hours per week, whatever that is. Some people talk about success and their effectiveness, how effective they are at communicating these things, at networking and things like that. Some people, it's more inner, right? They're successful if they've been able to create this joy in their lives. If they go to rehearsal and go to performances every week feeling joyful. Sometimes that's success. Sometimes it's about balance in your life. Sometimes it's, having that nice feeling, that comfortable balance between maybe your family, your burlesque career, any other work that you have, and your personal time. Finding that sense of balance. And for some people, it's all of the above. But don't listen to anyone else who tries to tell you what it should be. This is something you need to define for yourself. And you begin by challenging the assumptions of what it, quote, should be. So that's number one, challenging your assumptions and opening up your mind. No using the word only anymore. Number two, once you've done that a little bit, once you've kind of maybe gone for a few days, kind of keeping that in the back of your mind, being like, wait a minute, is that an assumption or is that something I resonate with? Number two is that I highly suggest you do some free writing and some writing exercises, because we can go through all these things in our head all day long, but until we actually get them on paper, our brain doesn't quite see them as real. Marie Forleo, that I mentioned in that same video, she gives a good example of an exercise, which I won't give into. I'll link that video in the show notes. Then there are many other exercises, or just doing a simple free write about what would be, what you would see as success, or what other people think and what you think about that. Just start, take out a piece of paper and a pen, and give yourself 15-20 minutes to just write whatever comes into your head. That'll really help you to kind of hone in on some things that you may not even have realized. Number three, and I hesitate to mention because I know it's bad to ever focus too much on negatives, on the negative things, but I do think that it is important to examine the opposite. So that's number three, is to examine the opposite. Think to yourself in the process of all this, and maybe free write about it as well. What does a lack of success look like? Sometimes knowing what a lack of success would look like could help you define what it would look like. Like, well, I don't know quite what it is, but I know what it's not. And so if you can really define what it's not, sometimes that'll help you kind of put the what it is into a better, kind of better light and better focus. And lastly, of course, super important to continually revise and adapt this. This is not going to be the same. My definition of success when I was 13 is not nearly what it is today. Heck, my definition of success when I was 28, 1 year ago, is not nearly what it is today. Things change quite a bit, and your precise definitions will definitely change, and it's important to keep that in mind, and don't hold yourself to old standards. So, for me personally, for example, I tend to revisit my written definition of success I officially do it usually every 6 months or so. Because my life is very, up in the air, very changeable. I move around a lot and things. So I tend to do that. But I also keep it near me just in case I need to look at it again in the meantime. And for you, maybe you could do it every year or so if you're kind of heading down one particular path that you really resonate strongly with. But just keep it in mind and don't be afraid to change it. If you've been going on this one path thinking, okay, Hall of Fame, Hall of Fame, Hall of Fame, Burlesque Hall of Fame, that's all I want in my life. And suddenly you realize that maybe that wouldn't be as important to you, or maybe that's not quite enough. We can actually set our goals higher than that as well. Maybe getting in the Hall of Fame would not be enough success for you, and you want to go bigger than that. Or perhaps the other way around, and you have this big, huge vision of success way up there, the Hall of Fame, but suddenly you look at your life and you're like, wait a minute, I'm pretty damn successful where I'm at. I feel happy. I feel balanced. All of these things that I've defined my personal vision of success at, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good chilling where I'm at. That doesn't mean that you can't push yourself and try to go a little further or try to have other goals, but really just be honest with yourself. And just because the you of 2 years ago had this big version of success does not mean that it needs to be your version today. So continually revisiting these. So those are kind of 4 steps. General steps that you can take on how to define your success. First, start by challenging your assumptions and starting to pay attention in your everyday life to what we think of as success and to what other people and yourself, what you're telling yourself about what success is and what you need to be going for. Second, take some time to do some free writing or some writing exercises, defining what your ideal future and what your version of success would be. 3, examine the opposite. Take a chance to kind of step back and look at the other side of it. What would a lack of success, what would an unsuccessful life look like to you? Don't get too depressed with it. Don't go too crazy. Just kind of to get an idea. And number 4, to continually revise and adapt, continually keep looking at this, coming back to it, and changing your mind and discussing it with people as well, because there's a lot of, even just researching for this podcast, there's many, many great definitions out there that people have developed for themselves that you could kind of see if they resonate with you and kind of adapt that way. So that's kind of the why and the how it's so important to define our own success. Once again, I think especially within the burlesque community, this is super, super important. Many new performers just immediately go to, okay, well, the end goal, and again, we can even go even smaller scale. Not even your whole big life, Burlesque Hall of Fame, Dita Von Teese, like not even that big picture kind of a thing. But even on a small scale, right? Take one of your numbers, for example. Define your success for that particular number. My version of success for performing this number is getting through it without making any mistakes. Maybe so. Maybe that is your version. My version of success for this number is getting through it with at least 25 whistles or hoots and hollers. My version of success is getting through this number without falling on my face. Okay, so even on the small scale, try to keep your mind continually challenging yourself and trying to define what this success would be, either on the short term or the long term. All right, so that is kind of my thoughts, my 2 cents, as it were, on how to define your success as a burlesque performer. Again, really just important that this is a very individual process. This is a very authentic process. Coming back to this the whole month about it's about being your true self, about knowing and listening to the inner diva or divo inside of you, right? The inner little voice that's kind of speaking to you and that calls you to do burlesque. Don't shut him or her out in favor of comparing yourself to others, that is. Really be listening to be authentic in these ways that we have and will be talking about elsewhere in the month, and in defining what is your version of success. It will really help you come back with that clarity, that direction, and the kindness to yourself and to others. So I hope that's helped you out today to define your version of success. I would really love to hear if you have already done this, if you've already kind of defined what a successful burlesque career would be for you. I would really love to hear about it. Or if this is something you're planning to do or you will be doing right now, please send me an email or head over to the post that accompanies this episode is burlesquestripdown.com/defining success, one word. And you can join in the comment section there and let us know what you think if you want to kind of create the discussion together. We can all talk about that. And I would really just love to hear, how do you define your success as a burlesque performer? What is your definition right now? How will you know that you've made it? Either again in the short term or the long term. Really, I'd love to hear it. Head over to that post, or you can email me if you'd rather keep it just between us, velvet@burlesquestripdown.com. All right, ladies and gents, thank you so much again for listening today. As always, I would really, really appreciate any sharing that you can do of this post, or heading over into iTunes and leaving a rating and review. It would really mean a lot to me. I love to hear any sort of feedback. Please send me any love or, constructive criticism. Be polite, but I would love to hear from you. And again, please share with your friends. We're working on getting in front of as many ears as possible. As always, we'll have another interview coming up on Monday, and then next week we will be continuing with Authenticity Month. Excuse me, I've been talking a little too fast. We'll continue on with Authenticity Month next week, and we'll be talking a little bit more about creating a personal brand. So this gets a little more tangible with that advice there, creating a brand as a burlesque performer. So thank you again so much for listening. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your weekend. And remember, as always, you stay authentic and stay sexy.